In today's class, we are going to discuss about the planning process, which means the steps which are involved in the process of planning. So the first step or the process of planning is setting up of the objectives. We know that objectives and goals are set up by the organization as per the plans, and all the activities or all the functions of the management are directed towards achievement of that particular objective. And that is why setting up the objective is the first and the foremost step of the organization or of the planning. And every organization has certain objectives, which means they have certain goals which needs to be accomplished, and once they are accomplished, only then it can be said that the organization is running very successfully. So the objectives and the goals are necessarily to be specified, and it should be clearly stated in the plans that what the organization wants to achieve. Only then the employees or the workers who are working in the organization will come to know what is the expected work out of them, what are they supposed to do, what are the objectives which are to be attained. Only then they will be able to work properly. And so the objectives should be clearly stated for all the department, whether it is production, financial, marketing, sales, advertisement. No matter what kind of department you are, the objectives should be clearly stated and defined to its members, so that there is no confusion, there is avoidance of conflicts, and there is no chaos regarding the functioning of management. And hence it can be said that the first step of planning in the organization is setting up of the objectives or the goals, and it should be done in such a manner that it is well defined, clearly stated, so that there is avoidance of any kind of confusion. And remember, all the type of organization, whether it is running on a small scale or large scale, they will be having an agenda, an objective, or an goal which needs to be achieved. So that should be the first thing, that is the setting up of objectives when it comes to planning. The next step is developing the premises. We know that planning is concerned with future activities, and you know that the future is uncertain, and so every planner has to make certain assumptions or certain anticipations should be made, and that is what is called the premises, which means when the managers are required to make certain assumptions about the future, these assumptions or anticipations are known as premises. So when you are a manager, you need to develop some assumptions that okay, if I increase my sales by 10%, then tomorrow this will be the profit I get. So I'm anticipating, I'm trying to forecast, and I'm trying to assume that if I take up this step, then this will be the result. So this is known as assumption. And there are many ways of assuming. It can be either the form of forecast or existing plans which we are already following, or any other past information about the policies. And so it should be very nicely stated that whatever we are forecasting or whatever we are assuming, it should be very important as far as the business is concerned, because the process of forecasting involves gathering of information of regarding various factors such as policies or product or changes in environment or the interest rate. All these are actually forecast, all these are actually examples which are given to you to get you know more about the forecast. So the forecast which is done, the assumptions which are done should be very particularly stated, because the accurate forecast helps them to become very successful, or you can say that accurate forecast enables them or is becoming very essential for the successful plans. So when the management is concerned, they should be able to develop various premises, which means assume the various changes which may come in or various factors which may affect the working of their business. They should be able to assume and predict these kind of premises, so that based on their past experience or based on the forecast, they are able to determine the changes which they might need to face in the future. The third step is identifying the alternative courses of action. So once the objectives are set, the assumptions are made, then the next step would be to act on them, which means to convert the objectives or convert the plan into the reality. But we have discussed this earlier also, there are many method one thing can be done in. So if you are doing the production activity, there are 2 3 methods which are available to you in which you can do the production. But as a manager, you need to identify which is the best suited one, which means which is going to take less time, less energy, as well as fetch you more profit within less time. And so you need to identify the best suited course of action from the available courses of action in order to achieve the objective. And an innovative course may be adopted by involving more people and sharing their ideas. When many people are working in the organization, they have different creative ideas. So when you are trying to implement a best course of action from the available ones, you should involve more and more people so that they come in with new creative ideas. And so if the product is important, then more alternatives should be generated and thoroughly discussed among the members of organization. If the project is more important, or if it is a huge project consisting of huge investment, then definitely more and more alternatives should be altered, and then it must be identified that yes, this is the best course of action which can be undertaken. And after identifying the alternative courses of action, the next step would be to evaluate. Evaluating the alternative courses means to check whether the idea or whether the action which was taken by me was actually suitable or not. So evaluating actually means to weightage the pros and cons, the positive as well as the negative effect. So when you have taken a particular plans of actions, like now you have decided that yes, these 3 plans of actions are best suited for me, but you cannot take all these 3 plans into actions together at one time. But what do? You actually evaluate, you compare between these 3 courses of action so that you are able to come up with the one best alternative available to you. So when you evaluate the alternative courses of action, you are actually considering the positive and the negative aspect of those alternative which are available to you. But in that, you should remember that you should be able to take the risk, because the person who takes more risk will likely to gain more. Okay, so when you evaluate, it should be on the basis of details related to earnings as per the interest, taxes, divisions, etc. When it comes to financial planning, it is an example. So in case if there is a financial planning, you should be able to anticipate the risk of a particular course of action based on interest, dividends, taxes, changing government policies, etc. So when you evaluate the courses of actions which are available to you, you are actually trying to come out or bring in one best alternative for you by evaluating or by calculating the positive as well as the negative effects of those actions. The next step after evaluation, so once you have done the evaluation of the courses, you come out with the selection of alternatives. So earlier you had 3 alternatives available with you, but once when you evaluated, you understand the pros and cons of the courses of action, you decided to avoid the remaining 2 actions and you came up with one particular alternative, and that is the meaning of selecting an alternative. And this is the real point of decision making, which means this is the real area. Till now you were simply chalking out the possible courses of action, you were simply evaluating and comparing between the alternatives available to you, but here is the real decision taking time, when you need to adopt the best plan which could be implemented and that which be feasible and will fetch you more profit with less or no negative consequences. Because as far as business is concerned, it wants least loss and maximum profit. So when you select an alternative or the best suited method for your organization, you actually want it to be feasible, which means it can be flexible and fitted according to the changing environment. It should fetch profit with less negative consequences. And basically what happens is, when there are many plans, then most of the plans are generally not always subjected to mathematical analysis, which means simply by calculating you cannot come out with the best alternative. You need to think your mind, you need to open up your mind to various other aspects also. And that is why it is stated that managers' experience, judgment, and at times intuitions play a very important part in selecting the most viable alternative. So, as I told you, all the plans or all the courses of actions simply do not base on mathematical statistics or analysis. Everything cannot be calculated and predetermined, and hence it should be very well taken care of while you are selecting an alternative, because this is your final decision. Once you have taken this decision, there is no going back. So once you have taken the selecting process, you should always take care that everything cannot be based on mathematical analysis, data, facts or figures. Some of the things when you select an alternative should be kept in mind regarding the previous experiences or your intuitions, or otherwise your past judgments should also be kept in mind before selecting an alternative. And sometimes there should be a combination of plans, not one plan together. There should be there should be combination of two or more plans, and the managers have to apply the combination to select the best course of action available to them. The next step is to implement the plan, and this step is concerned by putting the plan into action. So implementing means putting the plan into actions. For example, if there is a plan to increase production, then more labor, more machinery will be required. This step also involves organizing of labor and purchase of machinery. So it is an example. So if suppose you have planned out things very well, you are now going to implement those plans. So if you take in the production area, you saw that the production is running on large scale, you need more labor, you need more cost, you need to organize the labor, as well as you need to purchase new machineries, and hence the objectives or the goals should be set in such a manner that its implementation becomes practically possible. So once you have selected the alternative course of action, you should then implement the plans. So while implementing, the practical things or the practical aspects of planning should be kept in mind, because this is the place where you actually take your plans into another level of converting it into actions. So once the planning is set, alternative is decided, then you take the plan from plan towards implementing the plans. The next process or the step is the follow up actions. To see whether the plans are being implemented and activities are performed according to the schedule is also part of planning process. Monitoring the plans is equally important to ensure that objectives are achieved. So don't think that as a manager I have set up the objectives, I have developed the premises, I have assumed the things, I have identified the courses of action, I have evaluated them, and available courses of action from them I have taken or selected one best alternative. I have also implemented that alternative, or say that I have also converted that plan into action, then my work is done. Definitely no. You need to have a follow up action. Follow up action means you need to continuously take feedback whether this activity is done as per the plan, whether it could fetch me profit or not. So a follow up action, a feedback session is very necessary, because after implementation you come to know that we had decided to do this but we could not attain this. Why? We need to evaluate that reason, and there is where follow up action comes into picture. It helps us to give timely feedback to ensure that the objectives are completely achieved. So these were the steps which were involved in the process of planning. So the first one was setting up of objectives. The second one was developing the premises. The third step is to identify the alternative courses of action which is available, and then you need to evaluate which one is the best for the business. And once you have evaluated, you select from the alternative courses which are available, and then once the objective is set, the courses of action is set, now it's the time of implementing the plans. And once plans are implemented, activities are being carried out, it is continued with follow-up action or feedback session. So this was about the process or the steps which were involved in planning.